In today's video, I want to share some of my experience and tips when it comes to publication. Hello everyone, welcome back to Miss Ming's channel. This is Miss Ming or Dr. Ming. In this channel, I do vlog videos, makeup videos, lifestyle videos, and academic videos. In today's video, I want to share some of my experience and tips when it comes to publication. I don't know how many people care about this topic, but I just remember like when I first started this PhD journey, I was so nervous and lost, and I was so confused, and I was not very confident in terms of publications. And without my mentor, I wouldn't be able to publish anything. So I hope to make this video now that I'm graduating. I hope that the tips and experience I shared in this video can be helpful to some of you guys, either your master's or PhD student who are hoping to publish some articles. And also another disclaimer before I start, just because I'm here sharing my experience, by no means I have like so many like publications or I'm experts in this. I just want to share some of my experience I learned throughout this journey, hoping that they could help out someone who's like me. The first thing about publication is to know what are different types of publications. When it comes to publications, we have different outlets for your publications. The first one is books or book chapters. Second one is online article. The third one is peer-reviewed journal articles. So generally those are the common places where you can publish. So of course the peer-reviewed journals are the most prestigious, and second is like book or book chapters, and those online blogs and online proceedings are also great, but not so much as rigorous as the peer-reviewed journal articles. Okay, also when it comes to publications, there are also different types of content. You could write a literature review reviewing everything that's existing in the literature and write a literature review. You can do a meta-analysis that using all of the empirical research there is, and there is a way to calculate effect sizes. So it's kind of like a literature review, but with data included. Third one is, of course, a theoretical piece. If you are theorizing something, you can write a theoretical piece about it, not so much about review, but also you are proposing a theory. So generally speaking, I don't see a lot of graduate students writing it because usually it's like the gurus theorizing certain field, but with graduate students I see more literature reviews coming because they usually do literature review for their courses. The next one is empirical research. Empirical research to me is the most interesting to read, and it's also the most interesting to write. And of course, I'm a data person, but if you're a theory person, of course, you will love the literature review and theoretical pieces more compared to the empirical research. The last one is book review. Every time there's a new book coming in the academic field, you could review these books. Sometimes you could review a book and go look for a journal and submit your book review, and sometimes you can look at the books listed in each journal to contact them to see, hey, you have it listed for review. If nobody has reviewed them, I'm willing to review them, and they will send you the book. So book review is also something to start with as a graduate student. Okay, so among the 5 pieces, I think book review is the first publication I've ever had, and it's the first publication a lot of my friends first have, because when we're in this program, a lot of times we are not equipped enough to write other pieces, but book review is a great way to start your foot into publication world, and you can read a book and write reviews about it. And generally speaking, different publishers have different types of requirements when it comes to book reviews, but generally speaking, you review it first and then talk about chapters and then critically evaluate it and talk about some areas of improvement, and yeah. And literature review is also great, but it involves you to read a lot of articles and review the literature. But my favorite one is empirical studies. Like it really touches my heart when I read empirical studies with data, when it's done well, when it's interesting, and when it has practical implications. Okay, so those are the different types of publications and different types of content for publications. Now let's talk about authorship. When I first started, I'm so grateful for my advisor. I think like in every video I talk about my advisor a lot because I owe everything to my advisor. So with authorship, like it's very, very important to talk to the person you collaborate with at the very beginning before you start this project about how are you going to organize the authorship. Because generally speaking, the first author need to devote 80% of the effort, and the second and third author kind of like do the another 20. It's very, very important to talk about it beforehand so that you don't fight for authorship afterwards. Different authors are given different weights when it comes to academia. If usually people recognize the first author, and when people cite it, usually do like cite the first author, but you could also do co-first author. So basically in my CV, I put me as a first author. In your CV, you put you as a first author, and then at the end put like co-first author. You could do that as well. I've seen people do that, but it's not always the best case when it's confusing. But and I've seen people do that, but sometimes like when it comes to those co-first author, like it appears on your CV and people know that you're co-first author, but when people read your work, your names are usually listed alphabetically. And my last name does not have advantage when it comes to list your names alphabetically. So to me, I feel like it kind of works if you feel like both of you devoted the same effort, but it's always important to negotiate how you're gonna do the authorship when you collaborate with someone. American Psychology Association has a very clear guide when it comes to authorship. Usually when it comes to like who came up with the original idea, who did the majority for the study, and who contributed more compared to other people. So there's a clear guide. And also it's important to talk to the person that you're collaborating with, or the people you're collaborating with. Make sure that everybody is okay with like their ranks in the authorships, and everybody is okay and happy before we even start the project. The next one about publication is that where do you publish? Like where I have this article, like where do I publish? So this is a very, very difficult questions that we always ask our advisors and my mentors, and sometimes they are not even sure in terms of which are the best outlet to share. One rule of thumb is to see the publications of that journal within the past 2 or 3 years to make sure that your article is a good fit. Sometimes your article is rejected not because it's a bad article or bad study, it's because it's not a good fit. So look at the past 2 or 3 years to make sure that they have similar topics, they have similar audience, and look at the keywords of the previously published articles and your keywords to make sure it's a good fit. Also depends on if you want to communicate with American audience compared to international audience, and how you frame the study and things like that. The next one is, after determining a journal, you always have to revise your paper before you publish your article, because each journal has different minor difference in terms of what types of genre it is. It's weird, like they use certain terminologies. Some journals prefer certain terms, some other journals they don't. So, and also in terms of the format, how many tables are allowed, how many words are allowed, and also you want to use the word that touches the journal. So recently we're working on this manuscript submitting to Youth and Society. So I want to change my terminology in my article consistently to reflect the journal Youth and reflect the keyword Society. So again, like some tricky things you do in your little paper goes a long way, so that when editors or reviewers, they're looking at your articles, they immediately feel like it's a good fit and they can look further in terms of the quality of your study. The next tip about preparing your manuscript about publication is to make sure that you know that requirements and descriptions, and go to that journal to look for the format requirements and things like that. A little mistake will have your paper rejected, so make sure you double check that. The next one is like there's so many journals to choose from. Which journals are best fit for me? Sometimes, like when we do studies, although we're hoping to do as rigorous as possible, sometimes it's practically impossible to achieve certain rigor when it comes to our little project. So it's okay to target for tier 1 journals, but be realistic and target some smaller journals, and look at the journal turnover. And some journals, the turnover time is long. So make sure you check with that. And you can also write to the editors. They usually have the editorial board, and also make sure you check that out. And it's always nice if you know the editor. I know people don't play favoritism because it's a blind review, but it's always helpful if you go to conferences and talk to those editors. The next question that I always get is how many articles are required to publish each year. I think the rule of thumb in our institution is to have 2 per year, but it's impossible if it's a first year. So after first year, try to have like 1 or 2 published per year. And sometimes like things happen, you procrastinate, but I do try to publish like on journals, but if not, like you can also publish book chapters. I recently finished a book chapter with my best friend Tina, and we're expecting that book to come out next year. But usually book chapters are not as rigorous as peer-reviewed journal articles, but it's one piece of publication that you can have on the record. The next one is about rejection. So rejection is very normal. I've had a lot of rejections. Sometimes maybe your study is not very rigorous, but a lot of times it's because it's not good fit. You can always publish your rejected paper to a lower tier journal if you want to get it out, or frame your study a little bit differently. What I really love to do is to like look at the reviewers' comments and address them carefully. They're usually really good. The journal articles reviewers' comments is much more extensive compared to the conference proposals. It will tell you on which paper, which line you talk about which thing that's not clear. It is so specific and detailed. So I really recommend you to submit every paper you worked on to some sort of good enough journals just to get feedback so that you can later publish again, maybe to a like lower tier journals, but those feedback are really harsh, but they are honest and they're very nice. Sometimes like when I've work on papers, and sometimes my professors do not want to frustrate me by giving me good feedback to say that I did it really well, but later in the real world when you submit it, it's a blind review, they will say like, this is crap, you need to address this, address that, like this is so unclear. But don't let your feelings get hurt. It's normal to get rejections, and what is in the feedback is the most important. So submitting your articles to journals are going to be helpful to improve. Yeah. The next tip about writing for publications is that I serve as a post hoc reviewer for some journals. I've seen some good studies, mediocre studies, and bad manuscripts. I think the majority, let me tell you what I look for as a reviewer. And after I submitted my review, I can look at other people's review to make sure that I did a really good review when it comes to the comments. So I may not know, because I am not super prestigious. I haven't published that many, but as an entry-level published person, as an entry-level academia, I want to give you some of the advice. Now that I'm fresh off graduate school, I just want to give you some advice. I know our papers are not going to be as great as our advisors and professors, but it's also very important to address some little things that we can without having that much of experience. First thing that I look at is the study design. If your study is poorly designed, people won't look at the actual paper. So study design is so important. Even if your analysis is you can do more, people will give you comments about how to change your study, how to change your analysis. But if your study is designed poorly, if you used a poorly designed instrument, if your design is heavily flawed, it will be desk rejected. So study design is the most important. So when you have an article or when you're working on a project, it's very important to have it early on before implementing the project, to have multiple professors to look at your study design. Some professors may play nice because maybe this is your first experimental design, this is your first survey design. They may play nice and tell you a good job. But if you ask 10 professors about your study, I'm sure somebody will tell you, oh, this is not great. You gotta change this item. It's double-barreled. So don't get hurt if people say, oh, it's a crappy study, it's a crappy instrument. If you have that knowledge before you actually collected the data, it's a good advice. So take it, like just pretend that you have no feelings. Yeah, so the first thing is if you have poorly designed study or instrument, it will be desk rejected, or the reviewers won't even look at other like aspects of your study. So there is one. Second one is that your study should tell a clear, straightforward story. You can't allow your readers get lost about what you're talking about in the paper. And this is what I've been struggling all throughout the years. The reason why I know that is because it's my own struggle. You need to tell a clear, straightforward story. Your paper is a story. I know people say that academic studies, academic papers are not the same as like narrative, like storytelling. That's not true. I learned it the hard way. Academic paper is telling a story. So think about how you frame the story, who's the audience to your story, and what is the peak, the climax of your story, and what is the solution and the end result of the story. Make sure it's clear, concise, and very, very straightforward. So have you ever gone to a dinner table when a person started to tell a story, and then this person just started to go blah blah blah, and you just got lost? Like there was so much details to the point that you lost the big picture? That was me. So tell a story to the point is very important, and that goes back to framing the story, contextualizing the story, being concise, to the point, and what is your key takeaway from the story. So think about how you frame this story when you write your paper. Is very important. I struggle this a lot. That's how I know. I still struggle it, but I'm still trying to get better. Yeah. Okay, so the next one is when it comes to publications, especially empirical study, is do not overclaim. One thing as a reviewer I hate to do, and I've seen a lot of crappy papers that I've done, is to overclaim. It's always important to let your audience know that, oh, there is a limitation of this study and the results should not be interpreted this way. It's just an indicator that it may happen. Do not overclaim. If you are interpreting the results, make sure you tell your audience that you're interpreting the result but not claiming. Do not overclaim. Do not overgeneralize results. If your study is not generalizable, do not generalize one institution study to the learners from the entire world. So if you didn't do a randomized controlled study, is not really generalizable. Even if you do a national large-scale data set, like sometimes we still cannot be overclaiming or overgeneralizing our data. So be careful in terms of your implications and discussions and interpretations of the results. Do not overclaim. Do not overgeneralize. Be responsible for every single word you say in the paper. Because one thing I hate about writing is that once it's there, it's there. Once it's published. You cannot go back and explain. You cannot go back and change it. It's one thing if I, like in a term paper, I can change it. When I do presentations, and I can change it. But if it's a publication and you overclaimed it, in 10 years you regretted it, it's always going to be there. So be careful and be responsible. Be a responsible researcher means that you don't overgeneralize your results. The next thing is to seek for collaborations. I love to collaborate when it comes to writing. First of all, I'm not the best writer I know. and I think this is a known fact. Well, I don't know if it's a known fact, but I don't think I'm the best writer I know. I know so many more writers. By collaborating with people and by collaborating with advisors and mentors, I learned so much. So seek for collaborations, even if you're the last author. But that mentorship, like you can't pay it back. It's like so valuable. Second of all, I love to collaborate with my colleagues because we hold each other accountable. It's just like publications are self-motivated behaviors because nobody is going to tell you that there is a deadline. So when you have someone to collaborate with, like people are like, hey, have done my job, it's your turn. And when the ball is in your court, you got to make sure that you're responsible for this collaboration relationship. So collaboration, very, very, very important, especially in the early career as a graduate student. Very important to collaborate with people who had more experience and learn from their experience. Do not take things personally. And one of my mentors said she developed a thick skin, that like people were so harsh on her paper the first time she cried in the bathroom, and then later she realized it's actually good for her. I learned that. I'm so grateful for that advice. And then later I stopped being defensive. Well, there are definitely times I get defensive during a presentation. Just the first reaction of yours is you usually get defensive, but afterwards just like let it go and take in the advice and improve what you can. When you have rejections, just let it go and know that it's just life. It's just a piece of paper. Do not fight with people about that. Do not ruin your relationship with people. At the end, it's just a piece of publication. It's nothing more than that. Yeah. Alright, so I hope this video is helpful to you. If you also have a lot of great tips and strategies and experience when it comes to academic publications, make sure you drop your comments down below to help out everyone. And thank you so much for watching this video, and check out my other academic related video or lifestyle related videos. If you haven't subscribed, make sure you subscribe to this channel, give this video a thumbs up, ring the notification bell, and I will see you in my next video. Oh, also comment down below what other topics you'd like me to cover. I'm not an expert in a lot of fields, but I feel like if everybody can share some experience and advice, we can all learn from each other. Alright, that's it for today. Thumbs up and subscribe, ring the bell. I will see you in my next video. Bye!